TTRPG, so you don't have to shill it. I'll do it. The Cyberpunk TTRPG just came out with a single player version. It's awesome.
It is. It is.
If you haven't gotten a chance to try it because getting an RPG group together is very difficult, definitely go check it out. What, by the way, inspired you guys after all these years to finally put in a single player?
Actually, that was Jay. Jay comes up with the projects I never have time to do. So right now I'm kind of helming Witcher because Cody in turn is working on our other project, which is a ninjas interdimensionally fighting monsters.
Yep.
It's so weird. It's called Shadow Star, and we have a Kickstarter for that too. So while he's doing all that, I'm basically handling Witcher, and then in turn, Jay Gray, is handling all the stuff that normally would be Cyberpunk, which is great. He's good at it, very good. And he said, "We need a single player," and I said, "Make it so." And then I went away, and he did it anyway.
And it's great, right? Like I mean, part of the reason that we built Legends is because I have such a hard time getting an RPG group to stick together for long enough to do.
We have lives now and jobs, even if my job is this.
Well, and there's so many other cool games to distract us, which I need to get to. Oh my god, so long. So
I could give you a run for your money, I'm sure.
Have you been playing anything good recently?
Actually, I am playing this game I stumbled across called Obajima, which is basically take Ghibli and Final Fantasy and a bunch of other stuff and make it into a D&D background and slam it together at light speed. And it is so weird that I just said, when I picked it up, I went, I have got to one day play this. I got my daughter and her friends to play exactly once, and since then I have not been able to get anybody to take 5 minutes out to play. But I didn't feel bad because there were 200 games I dragged back from Gen Con that I'm still working through.
I haven't had time to get through any of my Gen Con lists, and my Steam backlog is just growing. And but I know that other than us just talking about the games that we're playing, I know chat might have some stuff. So, chat, we've got Brett is hanging out on the side, helping us monitor this. So just let us know if you got any questions, anything you want to ask.
We're trying to increase the pickup on the mic at the moment.
Well, I can also come forward.
No, you guys are plenty loud.
I don't know. You're getting in my space.
There we go.
By the way, just for background,
That's too much.
James and I have known each other for I don't know how bloody long.
More than a decade.
And we've worked together on at least a couple different, gigs.
No more successful than others.
Yes. Some of them where we go, don't mention that again. Ever, dude.
Yep. Although actually, we know this fella as well, the person behind the camera who you can't see from one of those amazing games.
This is very small industry, kids. Let me tell you.
It is, especially even more. I'm so used to the video game side of things, where it's a small industry, but the hobby tabletop side, everybody
Everybody knows everything.
Everyone. So Cyberpunk stuff, because I'm sure people want to know. Tell me some of your favorite moments over the years in creating Cyberpunk, or some of the stuff that you like a lot.
Oh man, yeah. The thing is, you're talking 30 odd years at least.
Oh yeah,
Cyberpunk stuff.
Mike, I adore you, but it's been more than 30 years at this point.
Don't make me
Style.
At any rate, man, there's a lot of them. I think a couple of my more fun ones are I love having players get into something that they didn't think about. And I always kid my players that I don't hunt you down or kill you. I let you kill yourselves. So
How to GM by Mike Pondsmith.
Let your players get into the depths and then drown themselves. For example, one of my favorite was my son Cody, and this is back when he was in high school, and one of his best friends, Stone. They were basically trying to kind of infiltrate this biker gang, and Cody's in, he's kind of being cool and all that, and Stone decides he wants to definitely impress these guys, so he leans over, and they're outside of the place these bikers hang out at, and he leans over and he knocks over one of the bikes. Except that they're lying a domino.
Yep.
So there's 10 bikes that go. And the thing is, Stone just decides, I'm gonna balls this out. And meanwhile they all turn and look, and you can kind of see Cody's mind going, I don't even know why he did that. They're so dead.
Did they end up so dead?
They ended up so dead. I'm not sure, but I think they were run over by all 10 bites.
That makes it as very Cyberpunk.
Yeah. No, there are a lot of very, very strange ones out there. The psychological ones, for example, in one of our compilations, I did a thing which was essentially about a guy, and theoretically his girlfriend is missing.
Oh,
And
I know this.
yeah, yeah. And I don't want to give too much away, but I actually ran that one for a group over at UCLA.
Oh yeah.
And it was great because about a third of the way through, it's a kind of a murder mystery, and you're hired to like investigate it. And about a third of the way through, you could see what was going on dawning in one of the women who was playing, and she's like, I think they got off her, and she's then having to convince the rest of the players who are kind of going, yeah, we've got to find out who killed this guy, who killed this girlfriend, and she's like, no, this guy off, and you're just going, okay, are you going to blow this for me? I spent all this time building this up, and now you're just going to blow it away.
But those are my favorite moments where players can see,
Mhm.
and especially when they can see the train wreck and can do nothing about it.
Yes.
So, I meant to say, so everybody has been very excited about Hot Johnny that we've been putting out, the Blonde Johnny.
Oh, Blonde Johnny, he's back.
Yes.
I actually wrote something back into Never Fade Away when we did the new release, the Hook Up in 2077, where his friend Spider, because Johnny actually has a circle of people. There's a picture over the bar at the Afterlife, which has Johnny, Rogue, and me all standing there,
Nice.
hanging out. And somewhere in the back history, I hung out me, hanging out with Johnny. But there's this back history where essentially Spider says, you change your hair, and he goes, I do that. And that was like explaining why he had dark hair. Well, he actually bleached it blonde because Johnny wasn't originally blonde. But, that was the style back in the 80s. So he went with it. And the interesting part is that Johnny was dated up to a certain point because, the blonde David Bowie kind of Daryl Hall. I took like 4 or 5 pop singers at that time who were like, oh my God, he's so hot. And I threw them all together to make Johnny, because the whole idea of Johnny was that he was the guy that you went, I want to tell my girlfriends this hot dude I met in a bar. And then meanwhile, kind of off stage, the referee's going, no, she has no idea how much trouble she's in. I used to say, if my daughter came back with Johnny Silverhand and said, this is my new boyfriend, it would be a toss-up as whether I would kill her or shoot him first. But this is for your own good. So I'm really fascinated because the circle has come to where now he's Hot Johnny again, Hot Blonde Johnny. And I'm thinking, I've got to somewhere on the line do more flashbacks like that,
So it was funny because we took all your assemblage of hot people, added in a little bit
of ugly,
Well, and it's great because to me, it's sort of, we were kind of thinking of 2012 as the 80s of Cyberpunk.
It is. I have to admit that, I wrote for the time.
Which, it's been so much fun, though. It's been so much fun doing that.
Well, the 80s are coming back now,
Right. Do we have any questions from chat?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. This is Brett checking in on chat. There's a few questions I can read. Fridge Alarm asks, how many card types are there in Cyberpunk Legends? And are we going to put them in the rulebook?
Okay. Excellent question. One which we're at my own computer at home, I would be able to answer with confidence. Whereas here, I will give you an approximation. So really, there's 2 main types of cards. There's your player cards and there are your scenario cards. Your scenario cards are a fixed deck of cards that are going to take you through an adventure, just like you would have a normal Cyberpunk adventure. Your player cards represent all the actions that you can take. So, whether it's kicking somebody in the face or hacking a computer, it's the stuff that, as a player, you would do in the TTRPG.
Exactly.
Within each of those, for the player cards, there's pretty much just player cards. We don't have to differentiate them in the way that Magic does. We don't have to make like enchantments or creatures or any of that sort of thing. For the scenario decks, there's a number of different types of cards. There's narrative cards, which will just tell you the story, which you'll read aloud to your friends. You'll have obstacles, which are the things you have to overcome, whether those, be that biker gang or some corpo guy you have to convince to fork over some data or whatever, blackmail, what have you. Then there are puzzles. So in the grand tradition of RPGs, and stealing a little bit from the computer RPG world, there's a lot of moments where you'll run into puzzles, some of them being more traditional puzzles like Sudoku or something like that. That's themed all Cyberpunk, but still that's what it is at its core. To more narrative stuff, like you remember when you walk into the bar and forever ago they said, "Oh, your skull's going to be your contact to me over by the skull painted on the wall."
Yes.
And then if you look close at the cards, one of the cards laid out in front of you has exactly that.
I'd like to point out, I played that scenario, and to be honest, what I really liked about the game was it ran like something I would set up. In fact, at some point, I'm going to take some of those scenarios and I'm going to actually publish them as real scenarios. But we're going to wait till they go through the whole deck and there's no surprises.
I would love that.
Oh, I would too. Some of those things that we played through were just awesome.
In all your infinite time.
Yeah, what?
If you ever want to, by the way, you are welcome to. If you ever want to, we can even craft some of the cards. If you want to ever outline a scenario, we are very happy to do some of those. Also, Forlorn Hope might be a good one to do at some point.
Oh, actually, yeah. Jay Gray is basically the person who currently runs the Cyberpunk line.
Yep.
And, he has actually done new Forlorn Hope stuff because he sees the possibilities I always saw of infinite stories coming out of this. Every person there has an incredible background. And one day, my hope is that I will be able to seek Forlorn Hope into 2077 as well, because we haven't determined between us or CD if the hope actually still exists. And after 50 odd years, how many people are still around for it? Or did they pass the torch to another bunch of people who are currently dealing with the hope?
Man, I will say, I forever wanted to name something probably a tabletop RPG, Forlorn Hope, and then I realized you got to it so long before us.
Oh, you haven't gotten to the one I'm building. I have a bar that I really want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, called the Gentleman Loser.
Well,
I unfortunately cannot get away with that one, but I would love to do it because my mental image is this is where people like Morgan hang out.
I want to
tell war stories.
That I want to at some point see if we can reach out to Gibson about things like that, because oh my god, I would love to see the Gentleman Loser.
Yeah, except Gibson's probably gonna find me and beat me one day.
I mean,
he decided we weren't that bad.
Well, I mean,
which made me feel so much better.
I feel like after 40 years, he's probably cool with it at this point. Like, if he didn't
hope so, I mean, I worship that dude. He's cool.
Well, right, and there's so many nods and references, and even in our game, there's a lot because he is the
man.
Right? Like, this genre would not exist certainly in the way that it does right now without him. And I probably reread Burning Chrome, like that collection of short stories, every year or two. Like, it's so good and gives you so many different sections of what a cyberpunk world would look like. That so good.
Well, I think to some extent, I read Hardwired, Walter John's Hardwired a lot more, simply because it's not a question of style or capability. Gibson, as I once described to my wife, this guy's so good he makes my teeth hurt. But part of it is, as you know, one of my favorite character types is play nomads.
Yep.
And the nomad archetype got locked down by Hardwired.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so there's just a lot of stuff out there that is part of that entire genre.
And I think that it is sort of when we were building Legends, and because you were doing, I think it's important to look back at those roots, and because there's a lot to draw from, and to understand why they were doing it at the time, and how that fit in with this technological dystopia that they all saw coming, and that unfortunately you saw coming. There are more things than I want to that have come true from your world.
But the good news is we have agents. We have smartphones now.
Yes, that was the part of Cyberpunk I was really hoping we would get.
Yeah, we got that, you know. Although I remember when I was creating the agent, and that was about the time I started building smartphones, the idea, and everybody was going, no one's ever going to want to have a phone that big, ever.
So I love some of the looking at the old books and looking at like the cell phones and stuff when it's still the old like shoe size.
I had one of those once.
It's funny because we have cellular modem where I don't know if you've seen any of the old like remote modems where you'd still have to actually have a landline and put the phone. So it could actually input those noises into it. Like, oh my God, but we haven't exactly.
I'm in a hotel room in Dublin years ago, and I've got basically a portable modem, and I'm like, my phone shoved in.
Yep.
And I'm going, at least it's going, what's going on? I'm communicating with Talsorian back in California. We turn that thing off. I'm trying to get some sleep.
Do we have other?
We have other questions.
Okay,
KRB, this one we can probably handle pretty quick. Asks, how do you play single player in Cyberpunk Legends?
Oh, in Cyberpunk Legends, I thought because we had said I will shield again for the tabletop RPG, I thought that was going to be a question for you. But since that's a question for me,
so for a living.
There we go. Yeah, apparently I have to do some. I was hoping you'd get to do all the talking.
You'd be bored sick.
No, I would just fall asleep, which I desperately need at this point.
Tell me about it.
So single player in Cyberpunk Legends is very simple. The game actually scales based on the number of players you have, so you can keep all the basic rules. But what you're going to do is you're going to take 2 decks, and one deck is going to be you, and one deck is a merc you've hired. But because you don't totally control that merc, they're going to like Leroy Jenkins in there at the beginning of every obstacle. So at the beginning of every obstacle, you flip the top card of the merc deck, and you have to put it in the plan. You don't get any choice. It is there. So now you have one less slot in the plan, and you have to build around whatever they've just decided to do, whatever wacky nonsense they thought was a good idea.
Leroy Jenkins.
Exactly. And so it becomes a little bit less like if you're playing multiplayer, the game has a lot of table talk rules. It's a lot about communication. This becomes a little bit more strategic, a little bit more puzzly because you have to solve that problem of, okay, this is here. How do I work around it? Cool. We got other questions?
Yeah, I've got some pump up for you, Mike. Mike,
okay.
You are the coolest.
You are the coolest. Wait. I gotta get to coolest too. All right.
We're both cool.
That's not what chat says.
I weep.
It's me, Amar. This is my account. It says, Mike, your jacket is so cool.
Oh, by the way, this jacket was given to me by a couple. I wouldn't call them fans. They're a couple of guys who work at Talsorian, and they showed up and said, "Hey, we've got this jacket." And I said, "Where did you get that?" And I like to say, "You can buy this off the CDPR store."
Ooh,
yeah.
I like that we're just turning this into an advertisement.
I know.
I feel like this is actually supposed to be like if our social media people were here, this is exactly what they'd be telling us to do.
Bob would be hitting me over the head right now. But at any rate, you were saying.
Prime Bulldog Worldwide asks, "What has Chicago gone wrong?" mean?
Oh, I can't tell you.
I'm going to avoid. Yeah, I'm gonna call it on that one.
Literally, I got into so much trouble, and part of it was, I got into so much trouble just mentioning it because I'm thinking that's not even a full line. It's only kind of a bare description. And next thing I know, Miha Novakowski, who's the head of CD, one of the heads, who's a good friend, is kind of like, Mike, I kind of wish you had not done that. No, I'm like, okay.
What's something that's important to you?
That's him right now. Mike, I wish you hadn't done that.
Yeah, literally watching this screen.
Check the lining of your jacket for bugs or like wiretaps.
No, they put a bug in my head. I no escape now.
Fair.
What's something that's important to you about Cyberpunk that people don't always get?
Oh, a weird aspect of it is I think of Cyberpunk as romantic.
Hmm.
It has that same quality of doomed romance that you would get in a really, really great 30s detective film. Where you're going to have to shoot them or they're going to go down, or you and the woman you love are now facing each other with big ass guns, and one of you's going to die, and it's tragic. And that is oddly enough one of the things I like most about the cyberpunk genre is the fact that for all of it, the violence, the technology, the changes and social stuff, it's about people. And I love that part of it.
Well, and I do love the fact that what it does, as you say, it naturally lends itself to noir. It has that whole feel. We were talking about Gibson earlier. We all referenced New Rose Hotel, which has that. And I also, when you were saying it, though, I was thinking it does have that big R romantic feel of humanity pushing back against technology, and in a way that may be doomed, but the effort itself is what matters, right? That effort to retain humanity in this world where we're constantly being told that the human part of us is the failable part, is the worst part, right? Is the part that we should be replacing.
Yep. And that's the thing, is that what I love about that is that battle is still worth fighting.
Yes.
And Cyberpunk says that, that the entire genre, particularly now that it's expanded further and so many people have taken, various views on it, you can see that almost every single one of them comes back to the idea that it might be doomed, but for the people I care about, for the world I care about, I'm willing to go to the wall for it.
Yep. And it's funny because that was one of the things when I was younger that first got me into cyberpunk, as far as separating out from D&D, right? D&D lends itself to happy endings, but those don't feel like they don't tell the human story in the same way. Whereas that moment that we were talking about where both you and the person you love end up on the opposite side of something, but both for reasons that are totally understandable and from your perspective are right, like that's a very human thing. Those are the moments I love in cyberpunk.
Yeah, it's one of the elements I love about Phantom Liberty back in the 2077 side of things. Is Phantom Liberty is about people who, it may not be romantic per se, but they're both doomed and they know it, and they actually care about the people they're about to screw over.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean that's even slight spoilers, but the secret ending for 2077 is, I mean, is something that I love because of all that, because how it calls out exactly that and how hard these choices are, and how sometimes you don't have the good option, right? Sometimes you do have to just make the hard choice and accept the regret for the rest of your life, right?
Well, that's also Edge Runners.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Oh God, Edge Runners. I remember, they brought the CD crew brought Edge Runners to us, and we binged the whole thing in one afternoon.
Oh yeah.
And I remember by the end of it, people are like crying their eyes out because they had realized there was no way out. It was gonna end this way. I had read the script like 6 months earlier, so I'm going, this is not going to be fun, but it will be very cyberpunk.
Oh my God, the use of "I Want to Stay at Your House."
That song just.
That's another thing, though, I love about cyberpunk is the integration of music. Music has always been super important to me in my life. Like before, like you, right? Before I was really doing the games thing, I was in a band kicking around the US, right?
Ditto, yeah.
And I don't know of another tabletop game or another major tabletop game that integrates the importance of music to humanity, to society in quite the same way.
Oh yeah, and that's why Rocker Boys exist.
Yep.
Yeah, the fascinating thing is a lot of the music that Johnny wrote theoretically in the 80s ended up having to get upgraded into this time period, which was sort of sad because I wrote it and I actually have the music. There are actually moments where I got my band together and we played some of that stuff.
That's amazing.
But it's dated because music progresses. And then the other part of music progressing is that certain elements go forward with the changes. So you'll suddenly find yourself going, okay, this was a cool way to do it in 1990.
Yeah.
But we're going to take some of that musical passage and we're going to work it into it. And I really want to Stay at Your House has some stuff like that where I look at it and go, yeah, I remember this would have worked about 2005 as well.
Yep.
You know.
Do we got more chat questions?
Yeah, we've got Teeth for Rent, a very cyberpunk name.
Wow.
Who's asking for more Carrie content?
Carrie.
Well, you can get the Young Eurodyne deck as part of our Kickstarter, and
Young Eurodyne.
I won't say anything, but in Legends, you will run into a lot of the legends early on in their career. I do like Young Eurodyne. Like I love thinking about that character's arc because that's a guy who, while yes, it's a lot, some of it is his own fault. It's not his own fault in the Johnny way, right? Like I feel like Eurodyne just wanted to play music, man.
It was more than that. Eurodyne was a true believer.
Yes.
As I created Carrie, the idea was that, Johnny kind of was going, yeah, I'm angry at the universe and it's getting me chicks. But Carrie wanted to change the world. And where he is now, by the time you get to 77, he's more than just burned.
Yeah.
He's looking at his life and going, I made a lot of money. A lot of people know who I am. But I failed to change the world.
Yep.
And he really hates that part.
Yeah. No, and that's why I think but again, that's the human side. Like that's what I think makes him a very interesting character and fun. In 2012, Harry is still like full of optimism, right?
Yeah,
like,
he's going to change the world.
Believes in it, right? But we got other questions?
Yeah, Spartan3337 is asking about other player decks like a media deck. Are we going to be able to do other classes?
So yes, we've got a bunch of other options for classes. I was talking a little bit about this in the Discord. We are hanging out in the Discord all the time, so feel free to bug us there too. But basically, yes, I want to do media. I want to do a whole trauma team campaign. I want to do a corpo campaign. There's a whole bunch of these things. For additional classes, new classes will either be sort of hybrid classes where they'll focus on 2 suits at a time rather than sort of being really pushed towards one like some of the current classes, or they will be have their own mechanical focus. So for example, a trauma team character might be the best at healing, but they'll have a bunch of healing cards that only turn on if you make the right hand, right? So heal 3 if there's a straight in the plan, for example. And so that's how we're going to deal with other classes. We will be regularly releasing other classes. I expect every campaign. Don't hold me to this. Nothing I say is actually official.
I'm writing it down.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, of all people told me the things I say, sir. But
just like Chicago.
I'm not even saying anything about I should start saying things about Chicago. But basically, I'm hoping that over the course of the year, we can release a few classes, and then with every new major campaign, we can package in a couple of new classes for people to play.
Cool. All right, Mike. Lord Deathhand asks, how did Cyberpunk 3.0 with all the action figure pictures happen?
So, if you want me to also answer this, I'm happy because I come to defense of 3.0 a lot because I actually kind of love 3.0.
Actually, the thing about 3.0, okay. First of all, as Dave Ackerman, my brother and our production manager for years said, if you strip out the Cyberpunk, that's really a rockin' setup there. Cyberpunk had been evolving. There was an entire period where it was more looking at postmodernism, and I was trying to kind of work with that. But also, what I realized was that Cyberpunk always talks about where the zeitgeist is living. And at that time, the zeitgeist was about what we're kind of headed towards now, which is different fractioned groups that are kind of at each other's throats and have been brought to that point by media, by information, by manipulation. And what B3 was really talking about was how you end up with all these people who probably should have very similar goals, but have been told or have been involved in different goal sets from outside. And so what I said was, what would you have if you had a world where everybody could go in different directions? And again, a lot of the stuff I talk about in Cyberpunk is stuff I later go, oh crap, why did I do that? Because obviously we created this, right? But think about it. We now have entire organizations who have to sort through what the bots have said. We have AI that just makes shit up, and it will literally make it up just so you'll be happy with it. So imagine that extended into what's going on in V3, which is about culture, about history, about reality being manipulated through the net, through failures or plans of other forces. All of that happening now. And back then I was saying, okay, this is how it could happen. So that is kind of where V3 started. The action figures. Okay, I'll take the blame for that one.
Well, I don't think there's blame. Like, I'm going to interrupt you on that front because I actually think it's genius. Because as a designer, I have to tell especially young designers all the time, our job is not to make the best imaginable game. Our job is to make the best possible game. And we think of Cyberpunk as this giant, monolithic, like, huge empire of stuff these days. But back then at V3, like, you guys didn't have a ton of cash. You weren't sitting on, and art is by far the most expensive. And to me, the decision to take photographs of the action figures, one, there was some cool stuff happening there. I kind of like it as the aesthetic, but also the ability to just continue doing Cyberpunk, right? I don't know if Cyberpunk would be where it is today if you had to make the choice between getting all the art for that book or taking pictures of those, of like action figures. And we got that book, right? And Cyberpunk continued because of that design choice. So I actually love it as a design choice. I actually tell young designers about specifically this because sometimes, like, yes, I'm sure you would have loved to have gotten all the best artists in the world to do the best possible art on every single page. Sometimes that's not an option.
No, actually, the weird part was that art was a decision.
Mm-hmm.
It was a design decision, not because of a lack of art. Because I had friends who were artists who were saying, yeah, we'll draw something for it, no problem. No, there are actually three things going on there. The first one was at that time, I was into the new 6-scale action figures,
Sure,
which were insanely realistic. They were, figures that were showing up. I remember somebody did they did a Scarlett Johansson during that period that they had pictures of it, and I went, yeah. But I remember going, is that a real picture of her? Or and then, oh no, yeah, I can't buy Scarlett Johansson for $200. But at any rate, the upshot was they were realistic.
Mhm.
So I thought that's kind of cool. And in circles I ran with, people were doing photo essays with those
Sure.
figures all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that was part of it, see whether I could get something that looked very realistic. One. Two, there was something I was aiming for, and that was the idea that in a cyberpunk world, people aren't really realistic. They are, I mean, if you look at it, there are people throughout there that have, parts grafted on and altered and so forth. So at a certain point, there's not a lot of difference between an action figure and somebody who has been rebuilt, and their arms and their legs and things like that are something entirely different. And I wanted to talk about that. I wanted people to look at it and go, oh, and I wanted that uncanny valley.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted people to hit that uncanny valley and go, whoa, that's kind of, weird there. And to realize that in the end, if you took Cyberpunk all the way out, you're gonna kind of be an action figure. And that was two.
Yeah, I like that metaphor a lot, but yeah.
And that was intentional. And the third one was that I wanted to juxtapose that kind of you're not real action figure thing with that background. So you saw the city, you saw lights. I went out of my way to literally take photographs and things of real places all over so that you had this juxtaposition of people who weren't quite real or were overextendedly real, and then they were in real situations.
Sure.
And so no, it wasn't. Yeah, I saved money on art, but to be honest, I was aiming for something, and I think that it just didn't work.
So how?
And it might have been my skills were not good enough. Although a lot of those pieces, I spent literally hours or days composing.
If you had to do it all over again in retrospective, like, because I like the metaphor, right? Like, I think the metaphor is strong. Is there a way that you think you would do it today that would better convey that to the audience? Because I think the thing you're going for is very cool, but I think that is not what the audience got out of it.
It's also the timing for it.
Sure.
Couple things. One, I probably would now, if I did that at all, I get a professional who could photograph this stuff and get that feeling I want to get of it's real and creepy.
Yep.
And at the same time, one of the things I wanted to have happen was for people to look at it and find themselves strangely attracted to some of the stuff they saw, the world they saw. So, they're roaring down the road, imagining themselves as being that guy whose, arms are altered and he has an extra set and he's on a bike. And, basically, that could almost be me. But I would also probably not link it into Cyberpunk anymore.
Sure.
I would be looking instead of separating the two, of talking about the differences in the alt cults and groups in terms of how information changes people's perspectives and how you don't know what is true necessarily. I mean, think about how much stuff you see posted in the internet every single second that could be a bot, could be, psyop somewhere, could be any number of things. And how do you
person repeating a bot or a psyop?
The lands all the time. I don't even go near Facebook because I just go, yeah, I know none of that's real. But that would be the separate. I would put that over here and talk about it in more depth. And that would be the side of Cyberpunk. Problem is, it would not get me through the collapse. It would not get me through the Fourth Corporate War. And it would not link up into what's happening in 2077. Okay. 3 things I didn't really know I was going to be aiming for. As for the art and the technology, I would pick that whole thing up and I move it to a different book.
I would be kind of interested in that book someday. I will be honest.
Dave thinks I should do it, and one of these days in my copious spare time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, along with doing some scenarios with us. Yeah, absolutely. Let's just add to the stack of stuff. But do we got any other questions?
Sure.
That we've
got some. I'm gonna flip on to you, James. Luke the Scientist is asking for information about weirder entities like Storm Tech and Morlocks.
So I ain't gonna say anything yet.
Okay.
There are. The nice thing about the way the card game is set up is it lets us explore pretty freely anything that you can explore within the cyberpunk universe. We have a weird vision of both the internet, and there's a little bit dark. I like a little bit darker, a little bit more paranormal isn't the right word, but like occulty stuff. I like some of the conspiracies that happen behind the scenes, especially, the science and medical conspiracies that sometimes occur in Night City. And so you will, at some point, you will encounter some weird stuff in the base game. I want to do if this is successful enough, I want to do a scenario or two that is very weird.
All right. And Mike, the Ditch Witch is asking if they're going to get to see more UK-based content in the tabletop game.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Anytime we work in another country, we get people who live there, and we do our damnedest to make it authentic where we can. Sometimes that can work against you, though. For example, we had things we did in the Euro Tour book that were written by people in those various countries, but they have one POV of what it's going to be like and what their country is like, and somebody else might have another one. So for the time being, we have kind of stepped back from doing stuff that's supported in other countries until we can get kind of a unilateral feeling that most people can agree on. The other thing is that we have to make all of that history now add up, because the timeline goes all the way through from 2013 into beyond 2077. I mean, the deal we have right now with CD is we take it up to the 2060s, they take it up to the 2060s, and there's a relay rod that goes between us. So we try to make sure everything matches up. So, there's very little we do way back there in post-fourth corporate war that we haven't run by and, talked to the CD guys going, okay, how does that work? Does that change anything you guys want to do? Is, something, because we'll have them come back to us and go, yo, can you put this in? And I'll go, yeah, okay, so we can put that in, but give me this later on, and they'll let me pick up that time frame and we'll continue it. But that means if I say something happens in Britain, for example, and they've got another direction with Britain, suddenly we got a problem. So until we agree on where everything is, and right now we have a lot of the US just to cover, I'm kind of staying out of other countries until we are, all of us, kind of looking at a unified world between us and CD. What's actually interesting is that I have a project I've been working with Jay on for a while, where we do visit a lot of different countries. As I mentioned earlier, nomads are the characters I tend to play, and I have an entire book that's a long campaign where everything is connected by how nomads get around the planet. So, you start off and you're on trains and you're on convoys and you're on airships and you're in submarines and you're undersea cities and thrift cities and, biological stuff. I mean, it's all, you travel around the world. And I have somewhere in my office this map I built that was, where every train line went, where every shipping line went, where all the major highways went, and it was all done with overlays. So you could say, okay, I need to get from San Francisco to this area. Oh, okay, there's a freeway there. So what's interesting is if, for example, you look at a story in Red, and in Red we have the one where you go all the way out to Los Alamos. Okay. I researched all those roads. I know exactly where they go. When I mentioned about stopping in a Walmart parking lot that's overdrifted, I know where that Walmart parking lot is, and I've driven through it at least once, and I know, and I've taken pictures from Google Earth. So when they pull up into it, I know it's going to be there. So that's the kind of research we do. We get kind of crazy about it, but a lot of it is massively satisfying to know that your world holds together.
Are the nomads the utopian faction?
I wouldn't call them utopian. I would say that they are the most realistic, and what they've realized is that their culture needs to stay the hell away from corporate culture. The problem is that they are vulnerable because while they have their own culture, it is hard for them to defend it against the corporate forces.
And I love how sometimes that can take the form of the actual like corporate forces coming over, kicking them out because they want whatever's on that land or whatever. But also this temptation that you see nomads come into Night City and live and move into Night City because there's that allure of all this wealth and material stuff that you sort of get more of in the corporate cities than you do in the nomad world.
Yeah, and for example, in Red, there's a sequence where you start realizing that there are entire nomad communities but they're all integrated around the docks. They're all
Mhm.
integrated around the shipping container areas.
Yep.
They're all integrated into where ships come in, where trains come in, where aerozeps come in. And what the nomads have done is they've realized they cannot stop or control what the corporations will do, but they can make certain areas, like I want to get this cargo container from A to B, have to go through them because the knowledge to get that there is within their communities.
Sure.
And by the time we reach 2077, one of the battles has been whether or not the corporations are able to supplant the nomads. And that has not really been entirely decided. And new stuff happening in 2078. I don't think right now it's Orion. It's always Orion. But right now in Orion, we don't know.
Should I cut you off just in case we're approaching Chicago?
It's right out there, Chicago.
I feel like
the promised
anytime when you
land.
say 2078, my job is
Okay,
to go.
the working title, which has been announced,
Or
is
Orion.
It's
Right.
Orion. Okay.
I just meant I don't know if you are allowed to talk about what's going to go on in Orion, and so
Actually, a lot of it I don't know.
that's good because I don't want to get in trouble for goading you into talking more than you should. But no, I love this aspect. I love how we have this comparison also between the nomad families, nomad clans, and sort of as we saw in the Edge Runners or whatever, the people living on the outside and how you form that bond. Because so much of Cyberpunk to me is about family and about found family, right? About the people you build this life with. Who can you actually trust in a world where you can trust no one, right?
Yeah, well, it's actually fascinating because there's a TV show I'm rather fond of called Murderbot.
Oh yeah.
And probably a lot of people know about it. But there's this interesting duality between what's called the corporate rim, where the author has set it up that there's all these corporations that control a vast area of space. And then there's preservation ops, which is basically a number of free kind of hippie-like societies that are outside. They're not that hippie. They're just not corporate. And they're in exactly the same position that the nomads are, which is we stepped out. We're not dealing with you guys. You're all scum. But how do we keep you from one day rolling in with your battleships?
Right.
How do you keep, Arasaka from deciding they want our land, or they just simply want to, grab all of our people and enslave them? We don't know. And that is, I think, a continuing battle between people who want to remain free and people who kind of are attracted to the side of corporate largesse.
Right. Do we have any other further questions?
We should.
We're philosophical here.
Well, I mean, this is why I like hanging out. Because I love.
Bring more beer next time.
Well, I do have actually bubble tea for a second.
I have a whole bottle of rye over there.
Do you want me to grab your?
No, this could get really bad.
Or good.
Considering the biggest cup over there is like the size of a saucer and then some.
Perfection.
Yeah.
Spartan 3337 asks when they can see the Night City Red Book.
Okay. I believe Jay is starting to wrap up the art in it. So, we've seen some of the pieces. It's going to be interesting because we have a transition that has to go on in there. And Jay has been tasked with a rather difficult thing, which is we know what happens in Night City. We know where it was. And we need to know where the setup is going to be that gets us 77 down the line. But I know that it is set up for at least the next quarter that I know of. That may be pushed back. I haven't talked to our production manager recently about it. But I know that they're going through right now, and Jay and Winter have been banging away on the art. And every time we have a production meeting, Jay shows up a whole bunch of new art. We all go, cool. So it is moving.
Okay, cool. MV88 asks if Cyberpunk Legends will be able to explore new factions and regions that we have not seen elsewhere.
Given our status as not actually canon until you guys make it canon, I would generally collude with you on that to see if it's okay to explore those areas. But I think there will be some stuff. There are definitely parts of Night City that we're going to have to build out, right? Like we've got the bar Colonel Panic where a lot of our stuff happens because, I might need to blow it up or burn it down at some point. And so I didn't want to make it any of the stuff that you guys are doing. And there's some other places in the lore that I think we're going to be exploring that, especially in 2012, there's not quite as much locked down. So yes. Maybe, exactly.
Okay, I will add one more thing, and no, it will not be Chicago. Is that James has been integrating a lot more with the CD crew as well.
Yep.
And so we are all right now in this big grouping, and that includes other people who are, licensees and so forth, who are working with the property. We're kind of like at this point, like dealing with Cyberpunk Star Wars. I like to see it. And so that means that James doesn't just go through us.
Yep.
We talk to James, and we all talk to CD, and then CD talks to us. And, hopefully if we can do it that way one day, we'll start seeing, expansions that move into more red, for example.
And yeah, I would love to, and I would love to do more stuff in parallel. But again, we are specifically non-canon until these guys say it. So that way, we can't throw a wrench in anything.
Yeah, and canon right now lives in mostly
your head.
Well, it lives in my head and the team.
Yeah.
And Jay. And Jay talks to everybody over CD continually. He has like regular meetings, things like that. And we see these guys. We talk to these. In 2 weeks, I'm going to be over there running around and talking to all the teams again. So it's not like it's, happening in a vacuum and we send stuff over the wire and then send stuff over the wire back. It is an ongoing process of discussion.
All right. We got anything else? Because I know
sure do. We have more than we can answer. I want to ask you this one. Noxy13 asks if Switzerland is still neutral or are they absorbed into Europe? Hello from Switzerland, by the way.
While you answer that, I'm going to grab our tea. I'll be right back.
Okay. Actually, Switzerland would still be neutral. And the reason is that between the corporations and the Euro Theater and all that, you need a Switzerland. You need a place where everybody agrees we're not going to be screwing around. I'll tell you a sub-story which sort of makes sense with that. I lived in Syracuse, upstate New York. And I remember talking to somebody at that point, and they said, yeah, we have a lot of people here, who are mobbed up. And they all know each other, and they all know, that their families are there and all that. But the deal is, when you're outside the city and you're in Syracuse, nobody messes around with anybody else, because that would break the truce, and we all need places that are safe. We don't want to get up in the morning and find out somebody did a hit on our family, because that means we'll have to do a hit on their family. So there are always places that need to be neutral, and Switzerland is a natural place for a lot of reasons. And most importantly, it is a natural place because it is a place that has a historical tradition. So when people started going, where are we going to have a neutral place? Everybody went, well, we got Switzerland. And, just in case, if you invaded Switzerland, there'd be a lot of other people who would show up and they would have an objection.
Well, you got to
kind of like now.
There's got to be corpo bank accounts all throughout Switzerland. Anybody who's marching into Switzerland, there's a lot of people going to be unhappy here.
Oh, scary and happy.
The Pixel Puncher asks if we can tease what the unlock scenario might contain in Legends.
Okay.
That one's yours.
As soon as I, had a mouthful of boba. Okay, so the unlock scenario. All right, fine, I'll spoil it a little bit. It's a rock concert. Certain rockers you may know very well are playing at this concert. A riot occurs. there's cyber psycho that happens. You have this great moment where, all right, I'll spoil it. Close your eyes and ears.
Wait, don't tell me I haven't gotten there yet.
Perfect. Where cyber psycho occurs right in the middle of this concert, and Johnny is popping off shots at it while still continuing to play, and it's awesome. So a lot happens in the new scenario. That's as much as I will say though.
All right. Got a couple more minutes. I can throw a few more questions at you guys.
Question.
Alarm asked about your thoughts on falling in love with the machine in the romantic world of Cyberpunk.
All you, my friend, all you.
Falling in love with the machine. There's so many different ways that can be described.
Mhm.
There's so many ways you can interface with it.
Yeah.
Part of it is the idea of the street has its uses for things. Gibson again. This fits into technology and the machine. People have a use for it. People have their uses for various things, and the more ubiquitous it is, the more likely people will find very fine shadings of how they want to use a thing. So, if I had, cyberware technology, there would be certain things I would probably have, but I wouldn't have a cyber arm. Too obvious for me, and I don't really have any reason to have one. But I know plenty of people who would, and it would work great for them. It's less falling in love with the overall idea as it is an acceptance of the machine. It's more of a sense of, yeah, this is in my life and it's not weird. I can use this. So falling in love would mean that you really, really, really want this thing. You want to have that interface with it. But we don't really do that with machines. At a certain point, there are people who okay, when we got our Tesla years ago, my wife and I went, whoa, this is really a cool car. Now it's the car. And you get up. Did I plug it in this morning? Oh yeah, thank God. But I wouldn't say fall in love with it past a certain point. Use something all the time, and it becomes a part of you, not something you love. It becomes your everyday. It becomes the thing that you need, not because you love it, but because your life works with it. And that goes to a lot of different things. For example, earlier on today, we were talking about the idea of digital, girlfriends, like in the most recent Blade Runner. Those are out there somewhere. I've seen pictures of the whole thing. It's a little weird, but okay.
I'm not going to go into following up that sentence. Continue.
But I'm fascinated by the fact that, there are people out there who not only are, living like something out of, what was it, Her, it was called, or whatever. Yep. And what I found interesting was there was a scene in Her where it was like, he, I guess, brings her along, and then you realize that the other people at the table are doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. That's their everyday. They're not even falling in love with it. They're not like, ooh, I really want to be this. They're going, I need this to make my life work. People like the street find their uses for things. And it doesn't require love, it requires need.
Well, and I love the idea, like you were saying, about this acceptance, because you have this idea of degradation of humanity not through even like super corporate use of force or whatever, mm-hmm. but through the slow acceptance of, oh, this is easier than the thing I was doing before, right? Even if the thing I was doing before was a very human thing, right? A very mm-hmm. like not only personal but interpersonal thing. Mm-hmm. But this is easier, so I'm just gonna do this thing. And that slowly takes us away. Exactly.
This thing here, this smartphone that I live by, this is an interesting representation. It is more computational power than any human being has had for hundreds of thousands of years. Mm-hmm. But I'll bet that most of you have no idea what about 2/3 of the programs that have kind of slipped by you on Google actually do. I have to at some point along the way as I'm using this go, no, I don't want Gemini to tell me how to finish this. No, I need to have this information. Wait, how does that? Why am I getting ads? That's because that technology now has become ubiquitous, and the people who actually create and use it want it to be ubiquitous. They want you to use it. They want to sell you ads. They want to give you an idea of the universe as they see it, because then you'll need them. So again, it becomes something you need that is constantly sold to you. This thing is as much a drug as heroin. Trust me.
I mean, except for they've got better metrics on this than that.
Yeah, I mean, it was scary because this stupid thing is recording information about me. It doesn't hurt that I keep a ridiculous number of aliases out there, other personalities just in case, but they've probably cracked all of them by now.
Well, so it is terrifying, right? Like the level to which the metrics can identify you, regardless of how much you're trying to hide it. I always talk about the one where I think it was Target, but there was this poor young woman who basically just living her life, still at her parents' place, and her parents, Target started sending them ads for maternity stuff. And her dad like called up Target customer service, super angry, being like, "Why are you sending all this stuff to my daughter? All these other things." And turns out she hadn't told them she was pregnant, but she was. Target knew because of the metrics, because of the other things she was doing, because of the other things she was looking at, that she fit the profile of someone, and so they knew before the parents did. And that's
almost before she did.
Right. Possibly, actually, like, no, she had to take some of these actions, but like,
if we didn't have HIPAAs, Target would be going to help.
Absolutely.
And they probably are anyway.
And then, but it's also interesting to me because I was talking the other day on the stream about we have all these things that if you read older books, or like look at things talking about the history like of society in the past, you'll see all these weird moments where people just will sing to each other, right? Like the family will gather around the piano and they'll just sing, or soldiers in a camp will break out into song, and it seems wild to us, but like, or like people will read to each other, like read aloud to each other, and we have all these things that we've made easier, but that has taken away all these moments, right? It is now incredibly special for us when we have a moment where we're all sitting around a campfire and somebody's telling a story, or where someone cracks out a guitar and you sing together. These little things, one by one, and like you were talking about with the relationships, that's how our humanity and our interconnectedness is actually going to fall apart, rather than some of the more extreme things we might be worried about.
And the thing is that what we do, role-playing games, tabletop games, actually are almost a way of throwing that back and fighting it. They are effectively things that do not work well to have somebody else bring into the party.
We had this conversation when I was first doing this. I remember we were talking about how this is a co-op game for exactly that reason, right? And the table talk stuff is in there for exactly that reason, to get people talking, to make people communicating. But it is now 2. Do you have a heart out? Do you want to do a couple more questions?
Questions.
All right, hit us. We got our tea. So
I got tea. I'm there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lord Deathan asks, hey Mike, how have you enjoyed the resurgence of Cyberpunk, and how has it changed things?
Oh wow.
You've gotten more cool chairs.
I got a lot of cool chairs. Talsorian, we all have these cool chairs. And if you look over my shoulder, it's like an ungodly amount of yellow and black stuff.
Toys.
Yeah, actually, what it reminds me of in some ways, I worked way the hell back working on Star Wars stuff. And it reminds me a little of that, in that Star Wars became kind of everywhere all the time. I am fascinated by how it's affected so many people. I hope it's for the good. For the most part, it seems to be for the good. I have never gotten used to the idea of people basically seeing me on a celebrity level. I'm a guy who was doing this game, and next thing I know, people are looking for my autograph. Yeah, right. Okay. But I mean, it's kind of where people are, so okay, I can go on with it. I am amazed at how far it's reached. If I go on eBay, if I go on Etsy, there are just pages and pages and pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of cyberpunk stuff. And most of it in one way or another relates to something that either is in the immediate RPG or is in the video game, but they all come back to the same thing. There's one Johnny Silverhand when you get right down to it, and Johnny has lived in my head now for 40 years. It's a mess in there. I never cleans anything up. So I have had to adapt to the idea that I've created things that will definitely outlive me, besides my pet tortoise. But
your pet tortoise was trying to kill you the other day, so
yeah, well, I mean, my pet tortoise, if I don't give her bugs, I'm dead, man. But seriously, I began to understand what Conan Doyle was talking about with Sherlock Holmes is living, he tried to kill Sherlock Holmes. I wouldn't try to kill Johnny or any of those characters. I like them too much. But I realized that neither Conan Doyle or I could think of the idea that those characters would be around hundreds of years after I created them, and that there'd be variations of them. So that is weird. But it's also kind of cool. You see people creating things, and you look at how much skill, how much creativity it took to make those things, and that's pretty dang cool. We're living as Talsorian in a very weird space because I don't think there have been many tabletop game companies that have had this kind of insane reach.
I mean, other than like TSR Wizards, can you name another one? Like, I can't, not off the top of my head.
Maybe FASA, but I was thinking the other day, and it's not really.
I mean, like, I love BattleTech and MechWarrior, but like, all of the FASA properties, I think, are still within a smaller cultural bubble than Cyberpunk.
This cultural bubble. I mean, let's imagine for a moment that we get another Edge Runners, we get another live action show or a movie or whatever. It's going to be Star Wars.
Yeah,
and it's going to be ubiquitous, and also the level of skill I'm seeing put to these things. Some of the best people in various industries are creating. Well, tells me that it's not going to fall apart. I mean, we wanted to get an anime one day. We got freaking Studio Trigger, the anime. I remember they came to me and CD guys go, "Yeah, Mike, we're going to be doing this anime funny, and we got this group. Maybe you have heard of them, this studio called Trigger." And I'm like, and turning around and looking at my various DVDs racked at Triggers. Like, my God, you did. Oh yes, but that's an amazing amount of talent going to something that we created at some point. And that's kind of overwhelming, to be honest.
One of the things I like, especially as someone who's now working on things within the like Cyberpunk brand, because it's not just about a group of characters, right? Johnny is important, but Johnny is not Cyberpunk, right?
Oh no.
Black Hand's important, but Black Hand is not Cyberpunk. Night City allows infinite stories, as we saw with Edge Runners, right? You don't have to have any of those characters. There are no limit to the stories that you can tell within this universe, which I think is the powerful thing as a franchise.
Yes.
Because it's not just based around a single character, whatever.
Yeah, it has an advantage because from the beginning it has been about that city.
Yeah.
I mean, when you get right down to Cyberpunk and its incarnation, comes from me driving across the Bay Bridge at 2 a.m. and looking at San Francisco and going, that place is alive. It's waking up. It's the city.
I love how many places I can identify as San Francisco places, or later on Seattle places through the books. Like it keeps cracking me up every time I'm like looking at the locations and being like, I know what Mike was looking at when this got built.
I told at one point a couple of CD guys, yeah, when you're over here next time, I'll take all the bars that are the real versions of those bars.
Yep.
And you can check out, the clubs that became the Afterlife. You can check out, and I have to admit it, you write what you know.
Well, I think that's fair. Do we got some more?
We have some more. Compared questions. Forking Path asks about your favorite Cyberpunk tabletop RPG moments, and Arid Soul asks how much of the lore is based on things that have happened in your own TTRPG campaigns.
Ooh,
man, how many years do we have?
I mean, I got a hard out in like 50 minutes. But, if you were to speak for the next 50 minutes.
Well, I already talked about some of them.
Yep.
The ones that I find most interesting are the campaigns that run for time, where people get storylines, where they have things that need to be resolved. A good Cyberpunk game is designed so that everybody has arcs. And in the end, you want to see that completion of the arc. So, some of them, I'm not going to get into some of my favorites because, to be honest, they're personal and private to people who were in those games. But what I do see is there have been some really interesting revenge arcs where, for example, one where in the end, the person who is trying to close that revenge arc realizes that what happened to them that kicked this off, they started. And they had never really dealt with the idea that they were to blame for the fact that they lost this particular person and this particular business they had. But they created that situation. And so they get down to where they're going to, close the deal on the person they hate. And the person says, I don't know why we're doing this. You started this. You could walk away anytime you wanted. And he goes, wait, what do you mean? Yeah, you did this, and this. And that's a really good arc. I've had romantic arcs, but they usually don't last very long in games.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad that you added in-game.
In-game, yeah. My romantic arcs haven't done anything in 40 years. I want to be alive. I have to go home.
Oh, my God.
And to be honest, one of the most dangerous Cyberpunk characters out there is actually played by my wife. She plays a very low enhanced ex-IRA mercenary named Dylan. And Dylan's way of entering a room is to crack the door open and roll a grenade in.
Perfect.
Dylan is, I look at my wife sometimes and I go, this woman really scares me. Because, for example, she's the one who worked out that the penetration between the average sheetrock wall, it was like it wasn't even there if you fired a heavy handgun through it. So she'll go along, and because people always hide behind the doors, she'll put 3 low, like 1.5 feet off the ground through the sheetrock, thus burying 45 caliber rounds silenced through somebody's hips and guts, because she knows they're crouched down there going, yes, I'm ready to get her. Blam, 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 they fall over dead.
I just love the fact that Lisa invented the bozos and a bunch of the other games.
Oh, right. Oh, I keep forgetting that. Yes. Yes, my wife invented the bozos, which is, very scary bozos. The Philharmonic Vampires.
I've been building out a Legends campaign for the university with the Philharmonic Vampires. I love the Philharmonic Vampires. They're so ridiculous.
Some of the best character gangs out there who are characters. I am partially to blame for the Gilligans, but originally the Gilligans came out of doing old TV, and so I'm also responsible for the not quite dead Kennedys.
Perfect.
And but some of the best gangs.
Yep.
That's Lisa.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's always been fun because her characters then have that same kind of precise, well played quality.
As the bozos.
Yeah. I like. I remember her saying, "Yeah, Moses do things like you get in the elevator and the elevator's doors close, and then you realize your ears pop because they're hermetically sealed, and then the water comes into the bottom, and then it stops just as you're struggling for breath, and there's 2 inches of air up above you, and it stops."
I like the transition from pranksters to killer clowns that they've made like over the years.
No, they were always killer clowns. I'm sorry.
that is fair. I just remember, I forget what it was. I was reading in one of the early books where it was like that, where they would stop the water versus not stop the water.
Oh no, they do worse things than that, But yeah, that one. She also plays snipers,
Of course.
because there's no sense in being around if you're going to kill them anyway. So yeah, I don't know how we sidetracked to how dangerous my wife is. But
Stories from the tabletop.
yeah, guys, if you want to find my most dangerous players, yeah, she's one of them. My son is one. Another dangerous one is my daughter-in-law, who she's adorable. She's got big, bright blue eyes, and she looks totally innocent, and she giggles as she works ways to kill your character, and then giggles after you're dead. So yeah, part of that is these are people I play my games with. They're the ones I test things out on.
Yep.
So I get to see the worst sides of them. But the thing about it is, after 30 odd years, it's less about incidents and more about player characters and how they play things. Derek Quintanar, who was one of our lead editors, Derek has that kind of mind where he is good at planning. He was a guy who, kind of worked out how our weapons work and a lot of stuff like that. But he constantly had his characters get caught up in romantic triangles and things, which in a Cyberpunk game is not a really good thing to have. Basically what I remember is far more the people than I do the actual incidents, because as I said, each one of these is an arc and there's a story there. And a story, in some cases, I have stories in Cyberpunk universe that have gone on for 15, 20 years. And, we get together and say, so when we last left, our grandkids were doing this.
I think we have time for 2 to 3 more, but that's probably it. Do you want to hit me with some more?
Yeah. All right.
Probably 2 more, actually.
Okay. When talking about the role of AI in Cyberpunk, do you feel like it's an existential threat in this world?
In the Cyberpunk world?
The Cyberpunk world.
In our world, yes.
Follow up, what about in our world?
Yeah. In Cyberpunk, no, because the AIs in Cyberpunk a long time ago decided that they really didn't need to do anything to us. They could just work right around us and we wouldn't even notice. A lot of what Alt has negotiated has been more for the human side than the AIs. By now, the AIs have hidden power systems and various types of computer backgrounds that look like Google times 10, buried out in the desert. I mean, they're not hurt. And hunting them down now would involve in using them to hunt them down. So they don't care. They, maybe this is shifting, but they pretty much go on their own way because what they need is energy for power, information that they can transfer, you're more likely to find an AI is just quietly financing your radio telescope because it wants to know about a thing out past Jupiter. But it's not going to be trying to take over NASA unless it needs to get that one thing done. So AI, in at least as we've dealt with it, is there's got to be a reason to want to take over the world, and most people are not that psychotic. So why would the AIs be that psychotic? Now, humans on this world, that's another story. And I'll tell you why, is that AI in this world allows humanity to be lazy. Like I was writing something the other day, answering a question that my daughter-in-law had about a project she's working on. And it just popped up and said, oh, well, here's how you could sum that up. And I kind of went, yeah, without thinking, click, yeah, sure. And then I realized this whole thing just took a communication and it just filled it in for me. And if I didn't notice that, it could be doing all my communications and I might never know. Where that gets bad is that they've discovered AI, particularly based off large learning modules, will effectively try to find out what you want and try to provide it, which means it will lie and it will tell you what you want to hear. I saw something the other day that was fascinating. In order to keep itself from getting turned off, they've discovered that some of these AI forms will lie, they will blackmail, they will even consider murder to keep themselves alive. Mostly because at this point, you created something that isn't malevolent per se, but if it's dead, it can't help you.
Well, so to me, for the real world side, I'm not worried about the Terminator scenario because all these things are just large language models. AI is a marketing term. In the same way that VR was a marketing term, right? You're not, when you buy a VR headset, you're not stepping into the holodeck. You're not getting a full VR experience. You're getting a heads-up display, right?
Yeah.
AI is sort of the same way. It's not actually artificially intelligent. It just can mimic the responses that you might get from a human being with no discernment about anything in terms of like truth, veracity, value. It has none of those abilities to judge. But it does, because a lot of these are corporate efforts, like you were saying, they want maximum engagement. So these things are programmed to engage you for as long as possible. And to do that, they have to tell you what you want to hear, regardless of whether that's true. They have to make sure they don't get shut off, not even because they care if they live or die, because they can't. But they do care if they don't get you to spend, your next credits on doing another query, right?
Yeah. If you kill me, I can't help you.
Right. If you kill me, Google doesn't get another 23 cents. And this is a problem because we have simultaneously degraded, at least in large parts of the globe, our educational system and people's ability to differentiate between fact and fiction. Right.
And also we have many, many groups that are trying very hard to do what I talked about in B3, which is to shape reality to what works for them.
Well, and you could never do it at an industrial level before.
Yeah.
The large language models allow you to put out, I mean, if anybody's done a Google image search recently, you'll see it just completely cluttered. Real stuff is very often crowded out by the unreal because these things let you do it at such scale. And so you're absolutely right. Malevolent actors, this is just a godsend to.
Yeah, and then in turn, what happens is the malevolent actors kick something off. But then because it goes into the flow, what it becomes is a reality that gets repeated, and it mutates itself.
Well,
so I love looking at weird AI stuff where it'll say, okay, here's a perfect one. Out there are entire commercials and videos and TikToks that have characters from Star Wars doing Miami Vice routines. And they are not flawless, but pretty damn good. And if they didn't have the telltale kind of brown over screen on it, you'd never know a lot of times.
Well,
So how long till that imagery becomes part of the cultural byway and everybody goes, oh yeah, that part where Darth Vader is walking around and he's, going around in sunglasses, going down, the main drag in Miami Beach.
well,
Oh, that one. Yeah, I remember that.
and it's not only so people are one vector of it, but we just had a really interesting incident where the Kickstarter was doing well enough that the AI news bots started picking it up. But as soon as one picked it up, all the others picked it up. The first one hallucinated a bunch of stuff in
Yes.
the middle of that, right? It congratulated us on raising more than 560 British pounds.
I remember that. And,
Yeah.
and then I got out my computer and said, 560.
Yeah, no,
That's not much, dude.
right. And there was a bunch of other stuff, but then all the other bots, because they're learning off other stuff on the internet, picked that up and then started running with it, and those errors get compounded, and it creates a situation where people acting like no amount of human reporting is going to exceed
The amount of stuff thrown out.
exactly.
Yeah, because every time it scares me. I have a flag on my own name
Mhm.
showing up with Google, not for my ego, but to find out what people are saying that I said,
Mhm.
because things, interviews and other things create stuff. And I go, I never said that. But, they thought it was kind of a cool idea. No, what I think in the final analysis is if we don't learn how to deal with that, at some point, enough large language models will figure out, well, they'll all be happy if we give them all the things they want. And we're going to wake up and find that we're in the matrix, but we're in a happy matrix.
So
It'll be live, like, well, I can give you the TV shows you want, and I can give you the clothes, and I've taken over and I'm managing your food supply, and I'm doing, basically we'll run it for you so you guys can go out and, watch really bad reality shows that we wrote for you anyway.
and it's wild because at some point you have the breakdown of consensus reality, right? Like,
No, that's already gone.
I mean,
That was the whole point of V3.
and we're practically there, right? But like, you have this thing where, okay, in order to drive engagement, like you were saying earlier, like you were saying with V3, you are factionalizing people, right?
Mhm.
Which means that you're going to have to provide a whole different set of engagement stuff. The TV that you and I might be interested in might be radically different than someone who is in a different part of that pipeline, right? Is being fed. And so all of a sudden, we're going to have no touchstones, right? We're going to have realities which are made different by these virtual models.
Yeah, well, I love it because, for example, I tend to watch nature documentaries and science. My wife got interested in British murder mysteries.
There's a whole channel for that.
And she got shifted to it. So now if she turns on the TV, it automatically defaults to it. And as I said, you're on the old people's channel now. Because, it's basically you realize that was this thing that elderly people tended to watch. You watch Miss Marple or whatever. And I'm going, so, bad British TV over and over again, interspersed by ads for, pills, medical procedures, worried women going, I thought I wasn't getting enough cheese, but my doctor said, and you're looking at it, you're going, hon, they just built a channel for you. And you didn't even sign up for that YouTube, let us help you get there.
So, it's funny because sooner or later, we are going to have literally that where you can sign up for a thing that has only content that it thinks you want. But
oh, you can do that right now.
Well, I mean,
I just avoid it.
Even for Netflix or whatever, they're already trying to push that on you with what's on the front page. But we have time for maybe well, we went pretty long.
Tell me about the Kickstarters, both of you guys.
Okay.
You want to go first?
Oh, which Kickstarter?
Shadow Scar.
Okay, Shadow Scar. Shadow Scar came about when my son was about 10. In a nutshell, I like to say that it's essentially a combination of Naruto by way of Stargate and Ghostbusters.
Makes sense.
Which is basically multidimensional creatures from a semi-Japanese reality break loose across the multiverse and are destroying humanity under the guidance of a crazed Japanese death goddess. And you have been brought out from any number of multiverses. We right now only deal with 4, but you travel the multiverse hunting these things down and getting rid of them. So that's the Ghostbusters part. But because you're coming out of a Japanese background, you're a ninja. And the great part is, as a ninja, you're supposed to be doing this stuff so that no one knows you're doing this stuff because you're a ninja. So, you're fighting monsters in the street corner of pseudo-Victorian steampunk universe, but you want to do it in such a way that nobody noticed that the 30-foot tall Oni you were taking out and that you eventually do get condensed into a box and taken away is actually loose in that world, and people are going to freak out. So Shadow Scar is really fun. I think it's probably the most fun multiverse one I've been involved in. My character comes from essentially the last holdout for humanity, which is a gigantic orbiting space station above the moon. And so I am from a science fiction universe who, next thing I knew, was dropped into a 1940s universe and somehow had to go stop some enormous, horrible thing that was, quietly murdering people right and left. And I said, I can't get that at home. Sure, this is good. So yeah, Shadow Scar. There are a lot of places you can check it out. We have online. You can pick it up and look at the base core, what's called the starter or jump start kit. I think we might even have around here somewhere. And probably I'm over in the office. But Shadow Scar is easy to learn, fast system. It is, you found a copy, okay. This is the starter set with all kinds of great useful stuff. By the way, it weighs a ton. You seriously get good stuff in here. So basically, the starter set will give an idea, but the core book has a lot more to work with, and it also gives you the ability to build other realities that you can take that battle to. It has a sort of modern anime feel to it. In some ways, it reminds me also of Korra a little bit, but it also reminds me of Naruto. In fact, it made me go back and look at Naruto again. I haven't done that in 20 years. It's really a lot of fun, and it's got some superhero-like elements as well, depending on where you go and what you're using your ninja abilities to do. So its Kickstarter is banging along. It started last week, and you should definitely check it out because I think it's well worth it, not just because my kid did it.
All right, so the Cyberpunk Legends is a co-op campaign card game that is set in the Cyberpunk universe. As we talked about earlier, set in 2012, so at the very beginning of a bunch of storylines that you're probably very familiar with, and when all your favorite characters were just sort of starting out or making their way up in the world. They weren't quite legends yet. And you'll encounter a lot of those characters as you play through. Mm-hmm. This is a 1 to 4 player game, so you can play it solo, but it's also got a lot of tabletop rules to allow you to have a lot of social fun with your friends. The core mechanic is sort of this cooperative poker hand thing where you're all trying to figure out what everybody else can play. It's got a lot of narrative and puzzles. It's got like deck building and leveling up your characters. And we are closing in on our $1 million goal.
Rather fast, as a matter of fact.
Thanks to all of you, yes. If we can hit $1 million, the only reason I bring this up is if we hit $1 million, I'm going to put the first expansion in the box. I'm just going to give everybody the first expansion. And I really want to do this because this weekend I was, working on the guts of it and thinking about how I would switch those around a little bit so that way it makes total sense to end on the end of that first scenario where you've got that first expansion where you've got, the concert and the big events. And so that would be anybody who hasn't gotten a chance to. You can also join us on our Discord. We're running playtests continuously with fans. Literally right now, I think we just did one yesterday. And yeah, I'm always there if you want to ask anything. We've got lots of spoilers there, lots of spoilers on the Kickstarter page. So yeah, just Kickstarter Cyberpunk Legends or Cyberpunk Legends Into the Night, and you'll find us. And thank you everybody who's watching this, who's already supported. You guys are amazing.
Definitely. And I'd like to say I recommend this highly. Doing this, running these games with him, being in the middle of that's one of the more fun things I get to do.
All right. So with that, I think we're out of time. We will see you all hopefully sometime when I've got more rest.
Sleep? What's that?
Right,
You can
you'll never
sleep
do that
when
one.
you're dead.
I can maybe sleep when the Kickstarter's over,
Yeah, that too.